Good morning. Happy Monday, friends. My name is Libby, and welcome to my audio journal, Finding Joy in the Shadows. Each week, I show up here and talk through some of the curveballs, the fun curveballs that life likes to throw our way. And I help us look for joy that still manages to sneak its way in, even in our messiest moments. This space is part reflection, part resistance, and part love letter to anyone who's struggling and still showing up. I am working through my own stuff here in real time, and if something I share or something I say helps you feel a little less alone or maybe a little more grounded, then that's great. That means that we're doing this work together. For today's conversation, I wanted to spend some time exploring what it really means to take our power back and to reclaim our joy. But before I get too far ahead of myself, per usual, let's take a few minutes to catch up on some recent happenings from around the world and dive into two very true LPs, true Libby's problems, certainly not real world problems, but two topics that I wanted to spend some time talking about. First one is the Met Gala. I know by the time this episode airs, the Met Gala will be kind of a distant memory if you paid attention to it at all when it happened. But for me, it just happened the other day. So from the time I'm writing this episode out, it's still the memory is still very, very fresh. And I have to say, I liked it. Like, I really liked it. And I know I didn't see that coming either. I usually tune out all things Met Gala. This event has always come across to me as very pretentious and not in the good way. More like in a let us show you a world you'll never be a part of kind of way. And honestly, the way they've always been portrayed, I have to say, it's a world I've never really wanted to be a part of anyway. I don't know. It just always rubbed me the wrong way. But this year was different. The theme was the Garden of Time, which kind of sounds like either a luxury perfume or something we might find in like an over-the-top fairy tale. But it worked. And for once, I felt the fashions were dreamy and grounded. Yes, they were still dramatic and there was still trains longer than my emotional baggage, but also a lot of the outfits felt wearable. They felt real and comfortable, even. And I say that with genuine surprise because usually the Met Gala is just a bunch of celebrities competing to see who can wear the most dramatic, most insane outfit on the red carpet. But this year gave us looks with intention and beauty. Zendaya, hands down, wore one of the absolute best looks of the night. Homegirl wore this beautiful white suit with this matching white hat and just gave me chills. Still gives me chills when I look at it today. If you haven't seen any of the pictures from the event, use this as an excuse to take a little break and go search for them because you won't be disappointed. There was a man there named Lewis Hamilton. I'm not really sure who he is, but Homeboy looked regal in his Wales Bonner suit, and he had this beautiful diamond brooch. Just looked stunning. Usher, Usher, oh my stars. He came wearing this beautiful Ralph Lauren suit and he had this chain that swooped across the front. And if you just have time to look up one look, then if it can't be Zendaya, then look up Usher because Homeboy looked damn good. Okay, what else? Nicki Minaj, she showed up in this fitted, very high couture dress, but it was like just shy of looking costume. And she just looked perfect, just positively stunning. It was the right amount of everything, like I said, without tipping into costume. It was stunning. She looked radiant. There was a woman named Monica Barbero. I'm not even sure if I'm saying it right. I'm not entirely sure who she is. But she showed up wearing vintage Dior and she just looked like she walked straight out of a 1950s high fashion magazine. I love vintage from that era. So I saw her look and was immediately obsessed. Um, who else? Lauren Hill's yellow Stella McCartney suit was just this beautiful, soft, buttery yellow. And as my niece Abby would say, it popped. She looked absolutely stunning, and I highly recommend looking at her look as well. So yeah, so overall, I thought the Met Gala was just absolutely stunning. It was really fun to watch. That was very creative. And I think this year was different. And you'll have to fact check me on this, but I believe Anna Wintour actually handed over creative control this year to a small group of Black men who helped shape the tone and theme of this year's event. And if that's true, well, then Homegirl needs to do that every year because this year's vibe was intentional. The creation was tight. It had culture, it had mood, it had drama, but without feeling like it was a joke we weren't in on. So, yeah, cheers to the Met Gala. You guys did great this year. Loved seeing it. Um, Loved seeing it for once. All right. What else? What else is on my radar? For those of you that have been waiting for some BTS news, I know you all have been waiting with bated breath for a recent update. So here it finally is. Because by the time this episode airs, my Korean boys should almost all be out of the military, except for my favorite, or my bias, as the kids say, Suga. And so it's kind of hard. Like, I know mentally they still have like a little over a month to go, but knowing that I'm recording this episode and they'll be getting out this week, I believe this episode will drop either the day that they're getting out or the day before. So now I'm like mentally going there and I'm already getting excited. So I'm trying to keep myself grounded here. So 4 of the members will be getting out by the time this episode airs, except for my boy Suga. The following week is when he gets out of his military service. I think it's a week later. And I don't know if he'll have a big production or like, hey, I'm here. He's kind of a very reserved young man and very quiet. And so I hope we at least get a picture, something. I just want to see him and make sure that he's just healthy and happy. I know a lot of people within the fandom or within just K-pop in general aren't totally over the whole Scootergate incident that happened last year. And so I just personally want to make sure that he's good, that he's happy, that he's healthy. And I'm just excited to see him. That's all I can say. A few days ago, though, Taehyung and JK decided to set the entire internet on fire when they dropped a photo of themselves working out together at the gym. And not gonna lie, it was kind of hot. There's really no other way to describe it. Taehyung, or V, who is my second bias next to Suga, as the kids say, he's always been a little on the daintier side, like kind of that perfect waif model figure. And now homeboy is beefy. He's beefy and like his muscles have muscles. Like he could absolutely be cast in a Marvel movie at this point. And JK was already quite beefy before he went into the military. And now homeboy is just huge. Like, I don't know how he fits in doorways. Like his shoulders just, I didn't realize like you could achieve that type of like strength, but he did. So bravo. For for those of you who are showing up to this and you're wondering why I'm talking about BTS, I get it. I used to know nothing about these guys. Like truly, I knew the name BTS. I knew they were a K-pop group from Korea, and that literally was about it. I never gave them my time, my attention, or my energy. But now, thanks to my friend Kirsty, who casually encouraged me to give them a listen over a lunch we had back in January 2023, now I'm all in. And here's the really cool part. I am going to be experiencing them as a full group for the very first time when they all come back in the military. And I'm really excited for that. I'm excited to see what all the hoopla is about. I keep hearing about it, and now I'm going to actually get to experience it for the first time. So I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to it. What's been really fun though about just falling in love with these guys is the reactions that my friends and family and even my colleagues have shown me, just really showing up for me and, listening and checking in and being curious, right? Like asking questions about them, wanting to know more. And it makes me feel seen. It gives me the warm fuzzies because it means that the people in my life are listening. They care about what I care about. And that means the absolute world to me. So yes, I am fully aware that BTS has become my Delulu. I'm fully aware of that. I don't need anyone to tell me how obsessed I have become. I already know. But they make me happy. The sound of their laughter reaches a little part in my brain that makes me feel genuine happiness. And in a world where everything feels like it's on fire right now, I'm allowing myself to lean into the people, places, and things that remind me good and happiness still exist. So that is, those are my LPs that were on my radar this week. The amazing outfits at the Met Gala, and my BTS boys are almost out of the military, and JK and V set the internet on fire by posting pictures of them working out. So if you have any free time, I just gave you some topics to Google, and maybe you'll enjoy looking at that stuff as well. Okay, so that was everything I had on my radar from the last couple of weeks. And let's go ahead and dive into it. I've got my iced coffee here. Lulu Joy is at doggy daycare today, so no background opinions from the peanut gallery. And if you're ready, then I'm ready. Okay. So for the rest of our time together, we're talking about two things that sound like hashtags, but are actually lifelines. And it's taking back our power and reclaiming our joy. If anyone listening has ever spent any time on social media, you probably have seen these catchphrases or captions all over sites like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. But what the heck do they actually mean? What does it mean? And what does it look like to reclaim our joy and take our power back? As always, I am here to simply share what I have lived through, the path I've walked, the lessons I had to learn. And not gonna lie, my path hasn't always been pretty, and it wasn't perfect either. But I'm thankful I found my way. And no, I am still not a licensed therapist. I'm just someone who's made it through some pretty rough and scary dark seasons. So today, I want to walk you through how I did this, how I took my power back and in turn reclaimed my joy. But first, like always, let's spend a few minutes unpacking what these phrases really mean. Because on the surface, they do look fairly similar, but they're actually quite different. Now, according to my homegirl, Mrs. Google, reclaiming our joy means actively choosing to rediscover and embrace happiness and fulfillment after a period where it may have been diminished or absent. While reclaiming our power means to regain control, agency, and a sense of autonomy in our life after feeling disempowered or lost. It's about taking back ownership of our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions, and making choices that align with our values and needs. So reclaiming our joy is a choice, a reaching, a remembering. While reclaiming our power, that's about coming back to our truth, taking back ownership of what's ours, our thoughts, our feelings, our actions. Again, I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm just someone who's lived through this, who's done this. And for me, reclaiming my power had to come first. That's what ultimately opened the door to me being able to choose joy again. For me, they were part of a package deal. So since taking back my power came first, let's spend some time with this one for a bit. I love that part in the definition of reclaiming our power where it said taking back ownership of our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. Because we've all been there before, right? Drifting so far from our own truth that we don't even realize we're living inside someone else's version of reality. And after a while, we start to believe their version is the truth. For some of us, myself included, we've just been through an emotional and verbal battle. Some of us feel too scared, or let's be real, too exhausted to speak up. We don't have the strength to say, whoa, wait a minute, that's not how I remember it. And when we're in that place, it's easy to lose our voice, to shrink into the silence. But little by little, when we finally sit with those pivotal questions I shared in last week's episode, well, what the heck happened and what part did I play in all of this? We start naming things, the moments, the memories, the feelings, the truths, all from our perspective. And then something begins to shift. Through these quiet, honest conversations we have with ourselves, we begin to remember. For some of us, journaling, writing it all down piece by piece is one of the ways we can begin to really see it clearly, to analyze what the heck actually happened, to name the patterns, to connect the dots. And then one day we realize, no, I'm not going to let you rewrite what happened. You can believe your version. I'm not going to stop you. Like I always say, you do you. But I am no longer going to live in that version because I know that isn't the whole picture. All of this happened for me during what I now refer to as the accountability stage of my healing process. During this time, I sat alone in my apartment and forced myself to face those really tough questions. I sat there for days, weeks, months, replaying the events in my head exactly as they had unfolded. I replayed them over and over and over again, piece by piece, line by line. Every thought, every feeling, every action. I poured it all into the pages of my journal. No detail was too small. Nothing was off limits. I replayed every conversation in my head again and again. I was trying to get to the crux of what the F had actually happened and how I ended up here. I remember it so clearly like it was yesterday. What was done and what was said to me and what I said and did in return. Even today, those memories are still so vivid, still so sharp. Why? Because they are my truth. But back then, claiming this truth didn't feel so clear. Even though I remembered everything in detail, I still found myself questioning it, second guessing, wondering if I was allowed to trust what I saw and heard and felt. And it wasn't until one of my very dear friends and life mentors, Anne, said something that really shifted everything for me. She said, Libby, you had every right to ask for what you were asking for. You had every right to want to be happy. No one had ever said it quite like that out loud to me before. Not like that anyway. And hearing it from someone I trusted was like receiving permission to finally exhale. Now, between you and me, this moment hit me in my bones. It's not that anyone was lying. It's that we each had different pieces of a much bigger puzzle. Some pieces were facts, who said what to who and when. And is it possible that things were missed, edited, lost in translation? Yeah, probably. So we're each left with our own version of the story. And honestly, that's okay. When Anne told me that my memories and my experiences were all valid, I had this mental pause, this moment of stillness where I thought, if mine are, then so are theirs. Right? It felt like my brain had exploded. Not long after I had that chat with Anne, I was processing everything once again, but this time with one of my dearest and bestest friends, Jessie. And I was just trying to make sense of how certain events in my life had unfolded, what was being said, what I was still carrying. And Jessie looked at me and said, sweetie, if this is the worst thing anyone can ever say you did, if we really look at it, it really wasn't that bad. So I think you need to stop beating yourself up over this. And that's when it hit me again. I am human. I am flawed. But guess what? So are all of you. And so are they. Period. The people we get intertwined with on this journey of life, we all have our own stories. You have your story. They have theirs. I have mine. Can these stories all be true? Well, yeah, sort of, anyway. I'm not talking about fake news situations. No one's out here spreading around propaganda. But there's this really fine line where we each experience what we're capable of experiencing in the moment. Because let's face it, when things are moving fast, when we're caught in the heat of passion or dealing with unimaginable hurt or trying to tame the rage monster that's dying to come out and play, because we are just so unbelievably hurt by what just happened to us and furious at how fast everything is unraveling around us, our brains miss things. We're yelling, we're defending, we're trying to survive the moment. We're trying to be right. And that means a detail or two or three that felt small to us, but might have carried a lot more weight for someone else. We're human. We missed it. And it works the other way too. Maybe they didn't think something we said or did mattered because to them it felt minor. It didn't register. They didn't catch the cue. It's because they were being human too. That's how we end up with different versions of the same story. Not because anyone's lying or trying to hurt us, but because we're all standing in the same emotional spot. Because we aren't standing in the same emotional spot when it all burned down. The people we get intertwined with are watching things burning down from one side of the argument while we are left watching from the other side. And this fact alone proves why we each have our own side of the story. Now, with that said, are there actual liars in the world, manipulators, adults who never learned how to take accountability for a single thing in their lives? Unfortunately, yeah. But that's not the kind of situation I'm talking about here. I'm talking about what happens when we find ourselves at odds with good people, people we once trusted, people who meant something to us, and who we thought we meant something to them. But because of timing, circumstance, or hidden, unmanaged pain, we're no longer on the same frequency. Things get missed, misunderstood, distorted. Like my friend said, I have my memories. They're real because they're my truth. And throughout this healing journey, I've had to accept that the same might be true for them too. Now, accepting this philosophy for me is how I started to take my power back. I began owning my story, all of the pieces. And by accepting my truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it helped me take the sting out of anything anyone, and I mean anyone, could ever try to throw at me again. It didn't absolve anyone else's actions or behaviors. I want to make this clear. Taking ownership of our story isn't about what anyone else is willing or unwilling to do. This is about us. This is accepting our story from our point of view. Accepting my story, my truth, it gave me a new level of confidence. Like, you got something to say? Go ahead, I dare you. Say it to my face now. I no longer felt like I needed to hide myself or feel ashamed for having feelings and for expressing those feelings. I was proud of who I am, proud of how far I have come, proud of my story, the good, the bad, even the ugly. This is me. Love me, hate me. This is who I am. And this is my story. This is my truth. And like I said in the beginning, once I took my power back, everything else started to fall into place. I finally had the headspace to choose joy again, to choose happiness again. I was able to once again look out the window and actually see sunshine instead of doom and gloom. So let's talk about reclaiming joy. Because yes, my joy returned after I took my power back. But no, it didn't happen like a snap of the fingers. It came easier, sure, but it still took work, real effort, intention, determination. I started reclaiming my joy the moment I declared to myself, no, I don't want to walk one more step down this dark-ass path. I found teachers, friends, and guides who introduced me to daily affirmations and manifestations. Strong, powerful messages I began saying out loud to myself every day, 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and right before bed. If you've been with me for a while, you already know this. But for anyone new, I have a whole lot of these daily rituals. First thing in the morning, I crack open a window. This used to be something I did simply to let in fresh air, but now I was doing it with intention. That breeze, it's an invitation. I am inviting something new, something fresh in. In the shower, I began speaking directly into the water as it poured over me, and I would say, amazing things are happening for me today. After I grabbed my cold brew, I began stirring in a little cinnamon while whispering out loud, everything will go my way. And at night, just before falling asleep, I began visualizing myself smiling again, laughing. I pictured myself looking blissfully happy. I would picture what it would look like to feel light again, what it would feel like to be living this image of myself. And it made me feel good. Every action, every word spoken, I meant it. Every single word I spoke to myself now held weight. I wasn't just saying them to say them or to check off a box from a list of things to do. I trusted my words. I believed the messages behind them. Again, these activities didn't fix anything overnight. And I will be honest, it took about 3 months of doing this every day, all day, before I noticed anything starting to change. 3 months of showing up for myself every single day before the heaviness finally started to lift. It took 3 months of planting those seeds, day after day, thought after thought, before they finally took root and started to grow. And then one day it dawned on me, almost surprisingly, joy wasn't something I had to chase anymore. It was something I was finally living. Now, to my more analytical friends who are listening, I can feel your skepticism rising. And even though this is a podcast, I can see you rolling your eyes. And that's okay. I get it. I had that same reaction the first time I heard someone say that changing the way we speak to ourselves could change the path we walk on. I think it was around 2012, 2013 when I was introduced to the book called The Secret. It was everywhere back then, New York Times bestseller, buzzing around every wellness circle. For anyone who might have never heard of this book before, the central message is basically this. Through the law of attraction, you can manifest what you want in life by simply focusing on positive thoughts and emotions, ultimately creating your own reality. Sounds nice, right? Spend $10 and poof, magical new life. Sold. I think I made it about 2 pages in before my eyes rolled so hard I thought I might actually sprain them. So the only thing standing between me and my dream life is saying some nice things to myself. Okay, cool. Thanks for the update, Captain Obvious. Truthfully, I will admit, a lot of what was in the book were concepts I had already heard before, things I kind of already knew. But at the time, none of it landed. None of it clicked because in 2013, I wasn't ready yet. Yes, I was struggling. Yes, I was unhappy with my current circumstances. I had just been laid off from my first ever professional job, and I found myself working somewhere I absolutely loathed. Every morning, I would squeeze myself into my 97 Corolla with no air conditioning, all 4 hubcaps missing, and I would sit through 45 minutes of bumper-to-bumper traffic in the middle of July, sweating through my clothes before I even made it to the office. I was depressed. I was gaining weight. Anyone could see I was directionless. But even in all that discomfort, the reason these tactics didn't work for me in 2013 is because I hadn't done any of the real work yet. The work required to create space for that kind of teaching to actually land. I hadn't released any of my anger. I hadn't accepted any part of my stories, nor had I owned the parts I played in any of it. So when I tried those manifestation tactics back then, of course they didn't land. They felt fake, like slapping glitter on top of grief. I was trying to say the right things, but there was no belief behind it, no intention, no trust, just frustration that it wasn't happening fast enough. That's why it didn't work for me in 2013. In 2024, I wasn't the same person. Yes, just like before, I was back in that place of discomfort, but this time it was deeper, darker. I wasn't just struggling. I wasn't just struggling. I was on the ground, mentally, emotionally, spiritually drained. When those teachings found me again, I didn't have the strength to stand in the fire, let alone walk out of it. I was still curled up inside of it. I was so weak. It hurt to move. It hurt to think. It downright hurt to exist. And just admitting I didn't want to go any further down, that was all the strength I had left. So yeah, now you know why I was willing to try anything at that point. Like I've said before, I was willing to try anything. Not because I believed it would work at first, not because I thought it was magical, but because I had nothing left to lose. I wasn't chasing joy yet. I wasn't even chasing healing yet. I just needed something to hold on to, something that didn't ask me to be strong, just something I could quietly whisper to myself in the dark. So, as you all know by now, I started small with just a handful of manifestations I'd collected from social media and the internet. I wasn't trying to overhaul my entire life. I was just trying to get through the day. That became my first new goal. Just make it through each day. I recited them every morning, afternoon, and night. I repeated them like clockwork, like anchor points in a day that felt otherwise unsteady. Each time out loud, like I was calling something in. It became a rhythm, a ritual, something I could return to when everything else felt unstable. And slowly I began to visualize the words and what they meant. I pictured myself being blissfully happy, and then how it would feel to be that happy again. As the days went on, more voices started to introduce themselves to me. That's when I learned to speak with intention during my morning shower, saying amazing things are happening for me today, and learned how unexpectedly powerful adding a little bit of cinnamon to our morning coffee could be. I was intentional with all of it. I carved out time each day to speak these manifestations and affirmations. I would sit on the floor, ground myself, and slow my breathing. My hands would rest gently on my legs, palms facing up like I was open to receiving something, anything. And it started to feel less like I was saying things and more like I was praying. these affirmations were small whispered promises. Like I was finally talking to something bigger than myself. And maybe for the first time, I was also starting to listen to myself. So, yeah, that's what this part of my healing journey looked like for me. Taking back my power came first. But thanks to the consistent work of planting seeds of positivity for months, reclaiming my joy soon followed. None of this happened overnight, friends. I want to be clear. All of this took time. It wasn't linear or pretty or tied up with a bow either, but it was real and it was mine. Maybe for you, it starts with the same questions I asked myself. What the heck happened? And what part did I play? Start there. Write it all out, all your thoughts, your memories, your truth. And then try this. Accept that whatever you said or did in those heavy moments, you were being human. And when you're ready, offer that same acceptance to them because they're being human too. Wherever you are right now in your healing journey, I hope you remember joy isn't always loud or flashy. Sometimes it's just the quiet strength of standing in your truth and saying, this is my story, and I'm not going to apologize for it anymore. And if all you did today was keep going, if you choose yourself, even just a little, I hope you know that counts too. That's powerful too. Okay, I think I have babbled on long enough. As always, we will add to this next week. Remember what we water grows. So let it be joy, let it be truth. Peace out, friends.